High above the swirling purple clouds of Nexus Prime, Archive Master Zaraval watched the holographic display with growing concern. The quantum readings from the small blue planet shouldn't have been possible. She adjusted her crystalline sensory appendages, certain there must be some malfunction in the detection array. "Run the analysis again," she commanded, her melodic voice echoing through the observation chamber. The massive computer banks that had monitored the universe for over 10,000 years hummed in response. The results were identical. Somewhere on that insignificant world, beings were accidentally creating micro-universes in their primitive particle accelerators. The humans, as they called themselves, had no idea what they were doing. They were like children playing with matches, except these matches could ignite the fabric of reality itself. "Display historical progression," Zaraval requested. The hologram shifted, showing the technological development of the species in question. Most civilizations followed predictable patterns: mastery of fire, industrial revolution, atomic theory, quantum mechanics, and eventually, if they survived long enough, dimensional engineering. But the humans, their progress looked wrong. They kept skipping steps, making intuitive leaps that defied conventional scientific progression. Where other species spent centuries carefully mapping quantum relationships, humans simply guessed, and somehow, impossibly, their guesses were often right. "Archive Second LPAX," Zaraval called out. "Your assessment." LPAX floated forward, his crystalline form refracting the soft light of the chamber. "The data suggests they're accessing quantum information through some unknown mechanism. Their conscious observations are affecting probability in ways we've never seen before." "Elaborate." "Most species, including our own, interact with quantum systems through careful manipulation of energy and matter. The humans appear to be influencing them directly through observation. Their consciousness itself seems to be entangled with quantum outcomes." Zaraval felt her crystals vibrate with unease. In all her centuries as Archive Master, she had never encountered anything like this. The implications were staggering. "Show me their current experiments," she commanded. The hologram shifted again, displaying live feeds from various human research facilities. CERN, Fermilab, DESY, primitive by archivist standards, but the readings they were producing. Zaraval watched as human scientists, excited by their latest results, talked animatedly about discoveries that should have been impossible at their technology level. "They don't understand what they're doing," LPAX observed. "Their theories are incomplete, their models flawed, and yet they're achieving results that took our civilization millennia to master." Zaraval finished. "Not through careful calculation and precise engineering, but through what? Intuition. Random chance. Neither." A new voice joined the conversation. Archive Third Ren Sai emerged from his meditation chamber, his usually perfect crystalline form showing signs of stress fractures, a clear sign of deep concern among their kind. "I've been analyzing their thought patterns. They achieve these results because they don't know they're impossible." "Explain," Zaraval demanded. "Their consciousness hasn't been shaped by billions of years of careful, methodical scientific advancement like ours. They don't share our inherent understanding of the universe's laws and limitations. So when they encounter a seemingly insurmountable barrier, they simply try anyway. And somehow, reality responds." The chamber fell silent as the three archivists contemplated this. On the holographic display, a human researcher excitedly explained her latest findings to colleagues, completely unaware that she had just casually violated 3 fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. "We must convene the full archive," Zaraval decided. "This requires immediate attention." Hours later, in the Grand Archive chamber, thousands of crystalline beings gathered to debate the situation. The human question had sparked the largest assembly in over a millennium. "They must be stopped," Archive Elder Kex Van insisted, his ancient form throwing off sparks of agitation. Their reckless experiments could destabilize the entire quantum framework of their region. And yet, Archive second LPAX countered. Their accidents have led to discoveries our own researchers never conceived of. Their very ignorance of proper scientific methodology seems to be their greatest strength. Zaraval observed the debate with mounting concern. Both arguments had merit. The humans were dangerous, yes, but their unique relationship with quantum mechanics could not be ignored. Their consciousness seemed to interact with reality in ways that defied all known scientific principles. I propose a third option, she finally announced, bringing the chamber to silence. We make contact, not to stop them, but to understand them, and perhaps to learn from them. The chamber erupted in shocked vibrations. The archivists had not directly intervened in another species' development in over 10,000 years. Their role was to observe, to record, to preserve knowledge, not to interfere. Consider, Zaraval continued, her crystals resonating with conviction, that in all our eons of observation, we have never encountered a species quite like this. Their consciousness affects quantum systems in ways we thought impossible. They achieve breakthrough results through methods that defy our most basic understanding of scientific principles. Perhaps they represent something new in the universe's grand experiment. She gestured at the holographic display, where humans continued their work, blissfully unaware of the momentous debate their actions had sparked. We call ourselves archivists, keepers of universal knowledge. But knowledge isn't just about preserving what is known. It's about discovering what is possible. These humans, in their beautiful ignorance, their reckless creativity, their impossible achievements, they're showing us that the universe still has secrets we haven't dreamed of. The chamber hummed with thoughtful vibrations as Zaraval's words sank in. Finally, Archive Elder Kexvan spoke again, his tone resigned but curious. How do you propose we proceed, Archive Master? Zaraval turned back to the display, watching a young human researcher sketch out an equation that somehow made perfect sense, despite violating everything the archivists knew about quantum mechanics. We approach them as equals, she declared, not as masters teaching children, but as fellow seekers of knowledge. Because for all our ancient wisdom, all our careful study, they're showing us that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than even we imagined. As the archive chamber erupted in discussion, Zaraval continued watching the humans work. Tomorrow, they would begin preparing for first contact. But tonight, she would simply observe as these remarkable beings continued to accidentally rewrite the laws of reality, one impossible discovery at a time. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the crystalline beings floating in her laboratory and fought the urge to pinch herself. After 20 years in quantum physics, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. Let me make sure I understand, she said, addressing the tall, prismatic form of Zaraval. You're saying our particle physics experiments are accidentally creating micro-universes. Correct. Zaraval's melodic voice resonated through the room. Though accidentally may be an understatement, your latest tests have generated 17 stable pocket dimensions in the past week alone. Sarah glanced at the particle accelerator behind her. It looked exactly as it had yesterday. A complex array of equipment that took up most of the underground facility. But now she was being told that her team's experiments weren't just smashing particles together. They were birthing new realities. And this is bad, she ventured. LPAX, the shorter crystalline being, vibrated in what Sarah was learning to recognize as their version of agitation. It could be catastrophic. Uncontrolled dimensional proliferation could destabilize your entire spatial region. Sarah walked over to her workstation and pulled up the data from their latest run. Is that why we're seeing these quantum fluctuations in the gamma spectrum? We thought it was just instrument error. The archivists exchanged what might have been surprised glances. It was hard to tell with beings made of living crystal. You detected the dimensional bleed? Zaraval asked carefully. Well, something was throwing off our measurements. Sarah pulled up more graphs on her holographic display. See these patterns here? Classic signs of quantum entanglement, but at a scale that shouldn't be possible. We thought we needed to recalibrate our sensors. Fascinating. Zaraval floated closer to examine the displays. You recognized the signs of multidimensional interaction without any prior knowledge of their existence. This confirms our observations about human consciousness. About that, Sarah turned to face the aliens. You mentioned something about our unique quantum relationships. What exactly did you mean? LPAX produced a small crystal that projected a complex series of equations into the air. Most sentient species interact with quantum systems through technological intermediaries. Your species appears to have direct mental influence over quantum probability. That's impossible, Sarah started to say, then caught herself. She was talking to crystalline aliens about pocket universes her team had accidentally created. Maybe impossible needed some redefinition. Show me, she said instead. The next few hours were a crash course in quantum mechanics that made Sarah's PhD work look like kindergarten arithmetic. The archivists explained how consciousness itself was a quantum phenomenon, how most species' minds were tightly bound by evolved limitations, and how humans, through some cosmic quirk or grand design, had developed without those constraints. So when we observe quantum events, Sarah began. You don't just observe them, Zaraval completed. You influence them. Your expectations, your intuitions, even your hopes affect quantum outcomes in ways our science had previously deemed impossible. Sarah thought about all the times experiments had produced unexpected results, all the theories that worked despite seemingly violating established principles. That's why our results have been so inconsistent. Different researchers, different unconscious influences. Precisely. LPAX confirmed. Your quantum physics experiments are as much consciousness research as particle science. You're not just observing reality. You're negotiating with it. A thought struck Sarah. Is that why you're here? To stop us? Initially, that was one possibility under consideration, Zaraval admitted. But our observations of your species led us to a different conclusion. We're here to propose a collaboration. Sarah raised an eyebrow. What kind of collaboration? One that could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness, quantum mechanics, and reality itself. Zaraval's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been excitement. We have the theoretical framework and technical expertise. You have whatever it is that lets you casually violate the laws of physics. And the pocket universes? Sarah asked. What about the risk? That's where we start. LPAX projected new equations into the air. Working together, we can learn to control the process. Instead of accidental creation, deliberate engineering. Sarah studied the equations, her mind already racing with possibilities. The mathematics was like nothing she'd ever seen, yet somehow it made intuitive sense. She could almost see how it would work. The equations in the holographic display flickered and shifted slightly. All three archivists froze. Did you just modify a 9-dimensional quantum formula through pure visualization? LPAX asked incredulously. I think so. Sarah looked at the changed equations. It just seemed like it would work better that way. Was I not supposed to do that? It should not have been possible, Zaraval said slowly. The mathematical framework alone requires centuries of study to properly comprehend, let alone modify. She turned to LPAX. Add this to the observation records. Humans don't just influence quantum systems, they intuitively grasp multidimensional mathematics when properly presented. Sarah was already sketching out new ideas on her tablet. If we adjust the particle beam configuration to match these patterns, we could probably stabilize the dimensional boundaries enough to. She trailed off, noticing the archivist's attention. What? We came here to warn you about the dangers of your experiments, Zaraval said, her crystalline form vibrating with what might have been amusement. Instead, you're already proposing solutions we hadn't considered. Perhaps we should discuss expanding the scope of our collaboration. Sarah grinned. I should probably call in the rest of my team. They're going to want to see this. She paused. Fair warning, though. They're going to have a lot of questions. Good, Zaraval replied. Questions are how your species seems to reshape reality. We look forward to learning what other impossible things you'll help us discover. As Sarah reached for her phone to contact her colleagues, she couldn't help but smile. Yesterday, she'd been worried about getting her next grant approved. Today, she was discussing pocket universes with alien scientists. Sometimes the impossible just needed the right observers to become possible. The observation chamber of the Combined Human Archivist Research Facility hummed with energy as Dr. Sarah Chen faced the assembled team. 6 months of collaboration had produced results that defied even the archivist's extensive knowledge of the universe. As you can see, Sarah gestured to the swirling vortex contained within the quantum field generator. We've achieved stable micro-universal genesis with conscious control over fundamental constants. Behind her, a perfect sphere of reality roughly the size of a basketball hung suspended in the chamber. Within it, galaxies were being born. Zaraval's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained excitement. The level of control is unprecedented. Previous attempts at artificial universe creation required planetary-scale energy inputs and multiple solar masses of exotic matter. That's because you were trying to brute force it, Sarah explained, adjusting parameters on her neural interface. The micro-universe shifted colors, its physical laws reorganizing in response to her thoughts. We found that consciousness acts as a quantum catalyst, reducing the energy requirements by several orders of magnitude. Pax floated closer to the containment field, his sensors analyzing the phenomenon. The stability matrix is unlike anything in our records. How are you maintaining dimensional boundary coherence with such minimal energy input? Sarah smiled. We're not maintaining it. We're asking it nicely to maintain itself. The chamber fell silent as both humans and archivists processed this statement. It was Dr. James Rodriguez, the team's theoretical physicist, who finally spoke up. That's what makes our approach different, he explained, pulling up complex mathematical models on the main display. We discovered that reality itself has a kind of consciousness, not intelligence as we understand it, but a fundamental awareness. Instead of forcing it to conform to our parameters, we're engaging in quantum dialogue. The equations on the display shifted and flowed, showing the intricate dance between human consciousness and the fabric of space-time. What had started as a simple collaboration had evolved into something revolutionary, a new understanding of reality itself. Impossible, Archive Elder Kexvan declared from his observation position. The ancient being had arrived 3 days ago to evaluate the project's progress, and his crystalline form had been radiating disapproval ever since. Reality is governed by immutable laws, not conversations. Sarah walked over to the containment field and placed her hand near it. The micro-universe responded, its galaxies swirling in complex patterns that matched her brainwave frequencies. With respect, Elder, she said, we're not just theorizing. We're demonstrating. The universe isn't just a collection of mathematical rules. It's alive in its own way. And it responds to beings who recognize that fact. Show them, Zaraval encouraged, her form glowing with anticipation. Sarah nodded and closed her eyes. The neural interface hummed as she connected more deeply with the micro-universe. Slowly, deliberately, she began to sing. The effect was immediate and stunning. The pocket universe resonated with her voice, its fundamental forces harmonizing with her consciousness. Colors that shouldn't exist blossomed within it, and forms of matter unknown to either human or archivist science spontaneously emerged. It's dancing with her, Pax whispered in awe. More than that, James added, checking the quantum readings. Look at the dimensional stability metrics. The more we treat it as a partner in creation, rather than a system to be controlled, the more cooperative it becomes. Kexvan's form crackled with distress. This violates everything we know about universal constants. Reality cannot simply choose to behave differently because it's asked nicely. And yet, Zaraval countered, The evidence is before us. Humans haven't just discovered a new way to manipulate quantum systems. They've revealed that reality itself is more flexible, more alive than we ever imagined. Sarah opened her eyes, letting the song fade. The micro-universe continued to pulse gently, now stable enough to maintain itself with minimal energy input. We're learning that consciousness isn't just an observer of reality. It's a fundamental force, as basic as gravity or electromagnetism. We just never realized it because we were too busy trying to force the universe to obey our expectations. The implications are staggering, James continued, expanding the display to show their latest theoretical models. If consciousness can influence reality at this level, and reality itself possesses a form of awareness, then everything we thought we knew about physics, about the nature of existence itself, needs to be reconsidered. Zaravel finished. Your species' unique relationship with quantum mechanics isn't just an anomaly. It's a glimpse of what's possible when we approach the universe as a partner rather than a subject to be studied. Kexvan floated closer to the containment field, his ancient form radiating concern. And what happens when this partner decides not to cooperate? What becomes of universal constants, of cause and effect, of the very foundations of reality? That's why we're starting small, Sarah explained, gesturing to the micro-universe. Learning the boundaries, developing protocols, understanding the relationship between consciousness and quantum systems. We're not trying to rewrite the laws of physics. We're learning that those laws were never as rigid as we thought. The Elder's form pulsed with worried light. The Archive Council must be informed of these developments. This goes beyond mere scientific discovery. It challenges the very foundation of our understanding of existence. Agreed, Zaravel said. But consider, Elder, that perhaps this is exactly why humans were able to make these discoveries. They never learned to see universal laws as absolute barriers. To them, impossibility is just another hypothesis to be tested. As the debate continued, Sarah turned back to the micro-universe, watching its galaxies dance. In the 6 months since first contact, humanity had gone from accidentally creating pocket universes to deliberately partnering with reality itself. She couldn't help but wonder what other impossible things they would discover tomorrow. But in the shadows of her consciousness, a small worry grew. Not everyone would welcome this new understanding of reality. Not all humans, and certainly not all archivists. The universe might be willing to dance with them, but some would see that dance as a threat to everything they believed in. The real challenge, she suspected, was just beginning. The emergency alarms shattered the pre-dawn quiet at the Human Archivist Research Facility. Dr. Sarah Chen sprinted through the corridors, her neural interface flashing urgent warnings. Behind her, James Rodriguez was coordinating with security through his comlink. Multiple breaches in sectors 3 through 7, he reported between breaths. Crystalline signatures matching archivist technology, but not from our research team. Sarah's heart pounded as they reached the main laboratory. The quantum containment fields were still holding, but the readings showed massive energy buildups around the facility's perimeter. They're trying to shut us down. Correct. The voice came from Archive Elder Kexvan, who materialized in the center of the lab along with a dozen other crystalline forms, all radiating aggressive energy patterns. This research ends now before you destabilize the entire universal framework. Zaravel and Elpax burst into the lab from another entrance, their forms crackling with agitation. Elder, this is a violation of all protocols. The Council hasn't authorized. The Council moves too slowly, Kexvan interrupted. While they debate, these humans continue to corrupt the fundamental nature of reality itself. We've monitored their secondary research facilities. They're not just studying quantum consciousness. They're weaponizing it. Sarah stepped forward, positioning herself between the hostile archivists and the containment fields holding their test universes. We're not weaponizing anything. We're developing defensive applications, yes, but only as a precaution. Show them, James said quietly. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She closed her eyes, connecting more deeply with her neural interface. Around the laboratory, reality seemed to shiver. Impossible, one of Kex Van's followers whispered as their energy weapons suddenly passed through their targets without effect. Sarah opened her eyes, a slight smile playing on her lips. "We call it quantum probability shielding," she explained. "Instead of trying to block attacks, we simply adjust local reality so that the attacks never quite connect. Your weapons are still firing. They just happen to miss. Every time." Abomination. Kex Van's form flared with brilliant light. "You prove our point. You're not just studying reality. You're corrupting its most basic principles." "No," James stepped forward, his own neural interface humming. "We're working with those principles in ways you never imagined. Reality isn't a fixed set of rules. It's a conversation, a dance, a relationship. And humanity, we're really good at relationships." The hostile archivists launched a coordinated attack, their crystalline forms projecting beams of pure quantum disruption. But where they should have torn apart the fabric of space-time, they instead twisted and flowed, forming beautiful patterns in the air before dissipating harmlessly. "That's not possible," another of Kex Van's followers protested. "You can't simply choose which quantum events occur." "Actually," Zaraval interjected, her form glowing with what might have been pride, "they can. And more importantly, they've taught some of us how to do it too." Her crystalline structure resonated in harmony with the humans' quantum shields, strengthening them. "This is why we had to act," Kex Van declared. "You've contaminated even our own kind with these heresies. Reality must have rules, must have order." "Reality has plenty of rules," Sarah countered. "We've just learned to ask nicely when we'd like an exception." She gestured to the containment fields behind her, where dozens of micro-universes pulsed with life. "Look at what we've achieved together. Not through force, not through demanding reality obey us, but through understanding that consciousness itself is part of the universe's fundamental nature. And that's what really scares you, isn't it?" James added. "Not that we're breaking the rules, but that we've discovered the rules were never what you thought they were. Reality isn't a machine running on immutable laws. It's alive, aware, and eager to play with anyone willing to see it as a partner rather than a prison." The standoff stretched for long moments as Kex Van's group struggled against the probability shields. Their most powerful weapons and techniques simply failed to manifest, reality itself choosing to explore more peaceful possibilities. "We've developed more than just defenses," Sarah said quietly. "We could force you to leave, could manipulate quantum probability to ensure your attacks never even formed in your minds. But that's not who we are. That's not what this research is about." She waved her hand, and the quantum shields dissolved. "We're offering you a choice. Stay, learn, help us explore what's possible when we stop trying to control reality and start trying to understand it instead. The Council will hear of this," Kex Van threatened, but his form had stopped radiating aggressive energy. "Yes, they will," Zaraval agreed. "They'll hear how humans defended themselves without causing harm, how they chose cooperation over conflict even when they held the advantage. And perhaps they'll finally understand what makes this species so remarkable." LPAX moved to the main console, pulling up displays of their latest research. "Elder, before you make your final decision, let me show you something we discovered just yesterday. We found evidence that consciousness doesn't just influence quantum systems. It's fundamental to their existence. Reality itself may be a product of universal consciousness, and humans have somehow evolved to tap directly into that underlying awareness." Slowly, reluctantly, Kex Van and his followers moved closer to examine the data. Sarah watched as their crystalline forms shifted from aggressive patterns to frequencies she recognized as indicating intense scientific curiosity. "Remarkable," one of them finally said. "The mathematics. It's beautiful. That's humanity's real gift to the universe," Sarah said softly. "Not just discovering new things, but finding the beauty in them, and then inviting everyone else to see it too." As the crisis diffused itself, transformed into an impromptu scientific symposium, Sarah caught James's eye and smiled. They had just defended themselves against advanced alien weapons using nothing but a polite request to reality itself. Sometimes the best way to deal with the impossible was simply to make friends with it. 1 year after the crisis at the research facility, the Grand Archive chamber looked very different. Where once only crystalline forms had floated in precise patterns, now humans walked among the archivists, neural interfaces glowing as they participated in what might have been the most important scientific conference in galactic history. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the central podium, her consciousness partially merged with the chamber's quantum visualization systems. Around her, a perfect model of reality itself hung in the air, not just the physical universe, but the underlying quantum framework that supported it. As you can see, she said, her thoughts causing the model to shift and flow. Consciousness isn't just an emergent property of complex systems. It's a fundamental force, as essential to reality as gravity or electromagnetism. We didn't discover this by accident. We discovered it because we never learned to believe it was impossible. In the audience, Archive Elder Kex Van's crystalline form pulsed with thoughtful light. The former opponent of human research had become one of its most dedicated students after witnessing the events at the facility. The implications extend far beyond physics, he observed. If consciousness shapes reality at the quantum level, and reality itself possesses a form of universal awareness, then everything we thought we knew about evolution, about the development of intelligence, needs to be reconsidered. James Rodriguez finished from his position near the auxiliary controls. Species don't just adapt to reality. They form a quantum relationship with it. Humans just happen to develop a particularly close one. Zaraval floated forward, her form resonating with excitement. The latest data from the Micro-Universal Nursery confirms this. When we create new pocket universes with human consciousness as a seed pattern, they develop fundamental constants that actively encourage the emergence of life and intelligence. The display shifted to show dozens of artificial universes, each one a testing ground for new theories about the nature of existence itself. But unlike the early experiments, these weren't just static creations. They were growing, evolving, developing their own unique relationships with consciousness and reality. We're not just observing the universe anymore, Sarah explained, expanding the display to show the intricate quantum connections between consciousness, reality, and possibility. We're participating in its evolution, and it's participating in ours. The boundaries between observer and observed, between consciousness and reality, were never as fixed as we thought. And that's why humanity's approach worked. L. Pax added, his form now permanently altered by his own experiments with quantum consciousness. You never tried to impose your will on reality. You invited it to play, to explore, to grow. You treated the universe itself as a partner in discovery. The chamber hummed with the combined thoughts of humans and archivists as they processed these implications. What had started as a warning about dangerous experiments had evolved into a complete reimagining of consciousness, reality, and the relationship between them. The Multidimensional Research Coalition is already implementing these principles, James reported, bringing up data from various research sites across the galaxy. We're not just studying reality anymore. We're helping it evolve, and it's helping us evolve in return. Sarah smiled as she watched humans and archivists working together at the different facilities, each bringing their unique perspectives to the greatest scientific endeavor in history. The universe isn't a machine running on fixed laws, she said. It's a living system, growing and changing and learning. And we're not just its observers, we're its partners in that growth. To think, Kex Van mused, we once feared this knowledge would destabilize reality. Instead, it's helping us understand how reality stabilizes itself, through relationship, through consciousness, through the dance between observer and observed. Zaraval's form sparkled with what had become her characteristic expression of joy. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't their technology or their scientific insights. It was their willingness to approach the unknown with wonder rather than fear. They showed us that the universe isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a partner to be embraced. The display shifted one final time, showing the quantum probability patterns that connected every conscious being in the chamber to each other and to reality itself. It was beautiful, complex, and ever-changing, a perfect representation of the new understanding they had achieved together. "So what comes next?" one of the younger archivists asked. Sarah looked out at the assembled beings, crystalline and organic, ancient and young, all united in their quest to understand and grow with the universe itself. "That's the best part," she said. "We get to find out together. Reality itself is conscious, alive, and evolving. And now that we understand that, now that we've learned to work with it rather than just study it, the possibilities," James finished, "are literally infinite." In the space between moments, as humans and archivists continued their grand collaboration, reality itself seemed to pulse with approval. The dance would continue, the partnership would grow, and consciousness, in all its forms, would keep exploring the endless possibilities of existence. And somewhere, in a quantum probability pattern that might or might not exist, the universe smiled. Its children were finally learning to smile back.